A while ago, I published a video called 11 Signs of a Bad Scale Model, and it received a lot of views and feedback. So it's only fair to make a follow-up. This time, we'll talk about what makes a good scale model. Keep in mind, everything I'll say in this video is completely subjective. You might agree with me or you might not. Either way, share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your perspective. Before we begin, just a quick note. I use AI voiceover because I'm still working on my spoken English. But all the ideas, writing, materials, and video editing, that's 100% my work. So if you enjoy the content, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. It really helps me out. And a huge thank you to the channel's sponsors. Your support means a lot and helps me keep this project going. Now let's get into the core of the video. The first thing that, in my opinion, truly defines a good scale model is having a real-world prototype. And just as important, staying faithful to it. Whether it's a tank, airplane, ship, car, or even a figure, when a modeler chooses to recreate an actual documented subject rather than a generic version, it instantly elevates the build to a new level. The model stops being just another Panther or yet another ZIL truck and becomes a miniature replica of a specific machine with its own story, context, and historical background. And that really comes through in the markings, the paint scheme, the tiny details, and the scene the modeler builds around it. It's especially impressive when a modeler finds a real photo or diagram of a specific vehicle, then carefully recreates the look, the colors, the wear and tear, the environment. Sure, it takes more research, more time, and more attention to detail, but the final result always stands out. And it doesn't have to be a rare or obscure subject. Even a well-known T-34, built based on a real photograph with historically accurate markings and thoughtful weathering, can shine among dozens of similar kits. There's a depth to it. It's more engaging for the viewer, and usually more satisfying for the builder, too. So, for me, a well-researched prototype and a faithful recreation is one of the key signs of a good model, and a great first step for anyone looking to take their skills and storytelling to the next level. The second sign of a good model is realistic and well-placed paint chipping. In my previous video, I talked about illogical or random chipping, the kind that looks like it was applied with your eyes closed. Now let's flip that. When chipping is done in the right spots, with the right color, and in moderation, it becomes a mark of thoughtful, skilled modeling. First off, chips don't appear everywhere. You'll see far fewer on vertical surfaces and more around hatches, edges, panel lines, and especially on the front of the vehicle, where it may have rammed or scraped against things. If the subject is battle-worn, these areas tell the story. Color matters too. For armor, chipping is often done in dark brown tones, imitating oxidized steel. But aircraft, especially aluminum ones, show bare metal, lighter, sometimes almost shiny. And with captured or repainted vehicles, chips might expose an earlier paint layer, which can add a lot of character. Size also plays a huge role. Oversized, irregular blotches rarely look right. Subtle, controlled chipping works best. A few well-placed chips tell you where and how the machine was used, without shouting it. That's why realistic, logical chipping, not too much, not too little, is one of the clearest signs of a quality, believable scale model. The next hallmark of a truly good model is realistic physical damage. Adding rust, dirt, and scratches is something most experienced modelers can do well. It's practically a standard skill at this point. But when a model isn't just weathered, when it actually shows bent parts, dents, broken panels, sagging structures, that's a whole different level. A perfect example is tank fenders and side skirts. If they're just rusty, fine, but expected. But if they're bent, twisted, hanging slightly askew, as if the tank really drove through rubble and debris, now you're telling a story. Now it feels real. Same with civilian vehicles. There are lots of rusty, dusty old cars in model form. But when you see a dented hood, a crooked bumper, or a crushed door panel, that's craftsmanship. The key is that the damage must be logical, placed where it could have realistically occurred. You can't fake that. It takes observation, structural understanding, and storytelling to pull it off. But when done right, these models instantly stand out. They feel alive, like they've been through something. That's why realistic, purposeful damage is a clear sign of modeling skill and creative vision. The next sign of a good model is well-detailed tracks, specifically highlighted road contact areas and guide teeth. It might seem like a small thing, but it's surprising how often modelers forget it. On any real, working tracked vehicle, these parts are polished bright from constant contact. Rollers rub the track pads smooth, and guide teeth grind against metal and debris. Leaving the tracks in a single flat color just looks unfinished. But with a bit of chrome paint, metallic pigment, or even a regular pencil lead, you can achieve a very convincing shine that mimics worn steel. It's a simple effect, but visually powerful. The key is restraint. Only highlight the areas that logically get polished and don't overdo the brightness. This contrast looks especially good against dirty, dusty tracks. The shine gives depth and realism. It's a subtle touch, but it helps the model break out of its static appearance and feel like a real machine in motion. That's why properly weathered and highlighted track contact points are a clear indicator of a quality build. Another clear sign of a good model is properly drilled out parts, especially exhaust pipes and gun barrels. Surprisingly, many kits still come with solid exhaust pipes, basically just plastic rods, sometimes not even slightly hollowed out. And when you take a closer look at the model, this immediately stands out and breaks the illusion of realism. Fortunately, it's easy to fix. Just grab a small drill bit, take a moment, and suddenly, the pipe looks much more believable. The same, and even more so, applies to gun barrels. Ideally, of course, you replace them with metal aftermarket barrels. They look fantastic. But if you're using the kit part, then drilling out the muzzle is a must. A flat, closed-off barrel just looks unnatural, especially on an otherwise well-painted, weathered model. At first glance, these might seem like small details, but they're the kind of subtle touches that communicate care, realism, and modeling experience. So when you see nicely drilled exhausts and gun barrels, you can usually assume the model was built with serious attention to detail. This point mostly applies to vehicles, especially trucks and utility cars. A clear sign of a good model is when the tires and suspension reflect the weight and load realistically. If the truck is fully loaded with crates, barrels, or gear, the tires shouldn't be perfectly round. They should appear slightly flattened at the bottom, just like in real life when the weight presses the rubber down onto the road. And even an empty vehicle doesn't stand on its toes. The weight of the chassis alone causes some compression. A skilled modeler always takes this into account. The easiest way to achieve it is to lightly sand down the bottom of the tires with fine sandpaper. It's a simple tweak, but it adds a ton of realism and atmosphere, especially if the vehicle is placed on a base with soft terrain or mud. It's a small touch, but these are the details that separate a static object from a lifelike, believable scene. That's why flattened tires and correctly set suspension are a clear sign of experience and attention to detail. Another thing that elevates a good model to a great one is properly weathered and toned windows. You've probably seen it before. The vehicle is rusted, worn out, weathered to perfection. And then you notice that the windshield looks like it just came out of a car wash. Instant immersion break. Even worse, sometimes modelers weather the whole vehicle with the windows masked off, and when the mask is removed, you're left with a spotless, crystal clear pane in the middle of a dusty, beaten-up build. It just doesn't look natural. On a well-made model, the windows are treated as part of the vehicle's surface, not something separate. They should show dust buildup, faint streaks, smudges, maybe even wiped areas from windshield wipers, especially if we're talking about a vehicle that's been through the mud or battlefield. You can achieve this effect with pigments, filters, matte varnish, or even a gentle graphite and Q-tip technique. The goal is to make the glass blend into the overall finish, not stand out like a mirror. That's why well-toned, realistically weathered windows are a reliable sign of a high-quality, immersive model. One thing that truly elevates a good model is having a proper base, or ideally, a full diorama setting. Even something as simple as a wooden plinth with a small nameplate can dramatically change how the model is perceived. It's no longer just sitting on nothing. It's framed, grounded, and feels more finished and intentional. A simple kit can gain a lot of presence just by standing on the right base. But if you go a step further and build a full diorama foundation, maybe some grass, dirt, pavement, a chunk of concrete or rubble, then the entire piece transforms into a scene, not just a model. It becomes part of a story, part of a moment. Even a small vignette that reflects the model's environment can add atmosphere and give the viewer immediate context. Where is this vehicle? What has it been through? What kind of world does it belong to? That's why a well-done base or diorama isn't just decoration, it's an extension of the vision and one of the clearest signs of a high-level, thoughtful model. Another detail that consistently brings a model to life and sets it apart is the use of figures. Even a single figure can dramatically change the way a build is perceived. A driver inside a truck, a tank crewman peeking out of the hatch, or a pilot seated in the cockpit, these instantly add scale, emotion, and narrative. The model stops being just a machine. It becomes part of a moment, part of a scene with human presence, and therefore, with a story. This is especially true in dioramas. Figures help create interaction between elements, guide the viewer's eye, and inject energy into the setting. Even background figures, not the main focus, add atmosphere and realism. Of course, painting figures takes skill, especially when it comes to faces and fine uniform details. But even a simple, neatly painted figure, properly positioned, becomes a powerful visual element and a clear sign of a thoughtful and high-quality build. The next point, and one I've mentioned before, is that good photography is essential to a good model. These days, very few people see models in person at exhibitions. Most of us experience builds through photos online, and that means a bad photo can ruin even the most impressive model, simply because viewers can't see the details, textures, or the quality of the work. Beyond photo quality, camera angles matter a lot. Sure, you should include standard overhead and profile shots. They help confirm that it's a scale model. But the eye-level angles are what really bring the model to life. Those shots create immersion and realism, and sometimes people outside the modeling world even mistake them for real vehicles. And that's one of the best compliments you can get. So, great photos aren't just an afterthought. They're the final layer of presentation. It's how you show your work to the world. And the better that presentation is, the more impact your model will have. And finally, the last, but definitely not least, sign of a great model is a compelling, well-written description. In many cases, reading the text alongside the photos is just as engaging as viewing the model itself. When the builder takes the time to tell a story, the vehicle's background, the historical context, the inspiration, and why certain effects or details were used, the entire piece becomes more meaningful and complete. These write-ups may include historical notes, personal thoughts, or references to real-life events. And they show that the model is more than just plastic. It's a part of a narrative. A thoughtful description is often the final touch that signals a truly finished and polished project. Because a good model isn't just an object, it's a scene, a story, and a shared experience between the builder and the viewer. Well, those were my 11 signs of a good model, based on my personal and subjective opinion. You may agree or disagree, and that's perfectly fine. Either way, let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to read what you think. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and support the project if you can. Until next time, and happy modeling.